Welcome back to the Crash the Pond podcast. It's a Monday, February 20th edition of the podcast, and happy President's Day, or as it's called in some states, Washington's Birthday Day.
Huh.
Did you know that, Jake? That it's actually President's Day, the name changes depending on what state you live in?
Did not, but not really shocked. I mean, certain states do certain things differently, so there you go. As we all know from, I think, the Ducks playing on this day, there's a Nevada Day that is celebrated. Right. And so there's random 1 p.m. starts in Vegas.
That's right, yeah. So at the federal level, it's called President's Day, but then I guess there's a President's Day federal holiday and a President's Day state holiday. But for most people, a lot of people don't get the day off at all.
I did.
For others, there's no benefit to this being a two-time holiday. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Who's your favorite president of all time?
I don't know.
I'm just throwing you a grenade and seeing how you handle it.
Yeah, I don't know. Haven't thought that through too much.
The great thing about this holiday is that it's
I can tell you who's my least favorite.
Careful.
Yeah.
Just please don't get us in trouble.
Nope, not going there.
Okay. Yeah. The great thing about this holiday is that it seems like in most states it's celebrating either George Washington alone or George Washington, Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
And I think everybody agrees those were pretty solid presidents overall.
Yep.
So, shout out to those guys for giving us a day off.
Yeah, shout out to them for a day off.
Yeah, all they had to do was, a couple wars.
Yeah.
Some different things. Okay,
yeah.
Anyway, that's enough of that. On this episode, we're going to discuss the trade deadline because the trade deadline is fast approaching. And I think that one difficulty when you're a fan of a team or even just as someone who's covering a team is that you kind of go into it maybe not fully prepared for what you're going to see. And so you see these trades fly in on deadline day or in the weeks leading up to it, and you're kind of shocked by some of the returns that players get. So the goal of today is to go player by player that's available for the Ducks at this deadline, presumably available, and try to figure out what these guys can get the Ducks. And at the end of it, we'll tally up exactly how much the Ducks could come away with if they trade everybody. So should be interesting. I mean, we've already seen some blockbuster trades. Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah.
I would consider that blockbuster to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
100% a blockbuster deal. And just so everyone knows, this topic we're doing just because it's way more relevant to talk about the games. I mean, to briefly talk about it, Ducks lost all 3 games over the past week to Buffalo, LA, Florida.
Ducks are in last place.
Picked up 1 point, are in last place in the NHL. So for any of you that are on board the Tank for Bedard wagon, it's full steam ahead for that train.
Yeah, the Ducks are playing poorly. They gave up 50-plus shots today. Yeah. Did you see the stat I put out?
No.
So the Ducks today was the 5th time this season they've given up 50-plus. And guess how many times they've given up 40-plus shots this season? How many games?
Shit. How many games have they played now?
They've played 47, about 49, something like that. Klingberg's missed a few, and he's played 47. So 50, we'll call it 50-ish.
Let's go with 23.
30.
Wow. They've played 57 games.
Okay. So in more than half of their games, they're giving up 40-plus shots.
Yeah.
Seems bad.
Yeah, not great.
Seems pretty awful.
Not great at all.
There's just something about that stat that just makes me laugh. Like I can't even really dig into it because it's just so silly.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so anything else before we get into these potential trades here? Anything else that's gotten your gears turning or any bones to pick? You've started us off with a bone to pick in recent weeks.
Have I?
You have.
I don't know. I mean, I guess the only bone to pick, and it's not really a bone to pick, but is we kind of said a couple weeks ago when people were thinking that if you were pro tank, that oh no, what's going to happen? And the Ducks are winning games and so on and so forth. And kind of you and I both looked at it and we're like, yeah, they're kind of just winning games a little bit through smoke and mirrors right now. And the upcoming schedule looks rough. And I mean, the Ducks lost last week 7-3 to the Sabres, 6-3 to the Kings, and they lost in overtime in a game that they probably should have lost by a similar scoreline today, if it wasn't for John Gibson having an absolutely outstanding performance. And so, I mean, there's not a lot to say. This is a bad team. There's various different reasons why they're bad. We've gone into it at length at various different points in time this season, and so there's not really much more to say about that outside of the Ducks are in good shape to get Connor Bedard, and this is the one thing that I think is important to focus on. We haven't talked about this too much, right? Because we haven't focused too much on the draft. We've kind of really been going game to game, week to week, everything like that. But when it comes to this draft, the top 3 in this draft are kind of locked in at this point. It's Bedard, Fantilli, Karlsson. Whether Fantilli's 2 or Karlsson is 2 is up to personal preference in some ways. And all 3 of those guys, by all accounts, are pretty much first overall picks in any other draft. If Connor Bedard was not in the draft, both those guys would be in conversation for first overall. And whether it was last year, the year before that, everything like that. And so by finishing last overall, not only are you giving yourself the best chance at getting Connor Bedard, what you're doing is you're guaranteeing yourself one of those 3 players. And I think that that's one of the most important things with this from that perspective.
Yeah, exactly. That finishing last locks you into the top 3.
Yeah.
Because even if you finish last, the odds are you actually don't get the first overall pick. So something to keep in mind.
I'll pull it up really quickly, but if you do end up finishing last in the NHL, so the Ducks currently have a 25.5% chance of getting first overall, 18.8% chance of getting second overall, and this is if the season ended today, and then a 55.7% chance of getting third overall. So over a 50% chance of third overall. If that's the case, the benefit of that is that those 3 players are all top first overall type talents. They're all NHL superstar type players, pretty much. It is where things are projecting, and things aren't perfect. That may not happen for all 3, every single one of them, but that's where things are trending.
Yep, and this is completely unrelated, but I just saw a tweet about the Stadium Series game this weekend. I don't know if you watched that at all or not. Probably not.
I saw some pictures of it, but not.
But there was an alumni game beforehand, and Patrick Eaves was skating in that game, and it's just really funny because he's got the big beard and the Hurricanes jersey, but he's got Ducks pants and helmet on. So,
when did Patrick Eaves play for the Hurricanes?
I don't know. I don't think I can answer. Oh, I think he got drafted by them. No.
Now I'm trying to look this up.
I think he may have been drafted by them. No, he was drafted in Ottawa. So he played for Carolina from 07-08 until 08-09. So
he went there after the Cup run with Ottawa. He was traded there, it looks like. Wow.
Yeah.
I like Ottawa, sure. Detroit, I'd remember.
I forgot
Dallas,
about Ottawa
I'd remember. I'd forget Nashville. He played 5 games in Nashville, I guess. and so Dallas, Detroit, Ottawa come to mind. Carolina had no clue.
Well, I guess, let's see, what is it, 37 games gets you an invite to the alumni game?
No, he played more. He played 11 games in 07-08 and 74 games in 08-09.
Oh, 74. Sorry, I was looking at something else. Okay. Well, anyway, let's move on. I guess, 85 games gets you into the alumni game. So that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Well, just good to see that he's skating, that he's able to do that, because if you remember back at the end of his career, it was not looking too good mobility-wise. Okay. Let's get on to these trades. So we're just going to work our way down, and I have a list here. We'll just go through it. I do want to point something out, though, before we get into the actual players. This has to do with Henry Thrun. So
that's right.
Last year, Jack McBain, college free agent, his signing rights got a second-round pick. He was a third-round pick, so this wasn't like some kind of top-flight prospect necessarily, but I do find it interesting that he ended up signing with the Coyotes, so maybe that was part of it, but if you can have some certainty about where the player is going to go, it seems like that can get you up to a second-round pick. And so the Ducks do have the option to trade Henry Thrun.
That story broke after last week's podcast, so we should briefly touch on that. Thank you for bringing that up. But Henry Thrun, it was announced by Lisa Dillman that he had informed. She I guess caught up with Pat Verbeek. He relayed that Henry Thrun had relayed to the Ducks organization that he was not going to be signing and was going to be exercising his CBA rights to become a free agent over summer. The one thing I want to mention on this, it's not a loophole. That's something that's kind of said a bunch. This is something that is laid out in the CBA. If you have spent your 4 years, graduated college, you have not signed your contract, you are allowed in August to become an unrestricted free agent. Having said that, you are still, you cannot sign for however much you want to. You have to sign an ELC still after that. So I think no matter what, it's going to be a 2-year ELC. As a result of his age, don't quote me on that. It's something I would need to double check on, but I believe that the ELC will be 2 years. So actually the thing that the Ducks have going for them in this situation. So first off, anyone comparing it to Justin Schultz, completely different situations. Thing with Justin Schultz, he had continually told the Ducks that he wanted to sign yada, 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 and then backed out on them on the last second, where essentially they were left standing still, not being able to move his rights really for anything at that point in time. Henry Thrun, we don't know actually how long ago he would have told the Ducks, because this is now just being relayed. It could have been months ago at this point in time that he relayed that to the Ducks. But regardless, it's given Pat Verbeek enough time where he could look to move his rights. And if Pat Verbeek does trade him prior to the trade deadline, or trade his rights prior to the trade deadline, and he signs with that team can play him in a game and burn this year off his contract, essentially giving him a 1-year ELC, and it gives him a benefit to signing with that team.
Yeah.
And so if it's a team he wants to go to, it makes sense and gives him games. And if that team thinks that they're a playoff team and that he can help contribute, that's another thing. And so there is value to him. It's not as if just because he said he's not going to sign with the Ducks and they've lost all leverage in terms of signing. That's not really the case. There is something that they can get back for him if they're able to do it kind of now. If it hits summer, maybe that kind of changes. It's a very marginal thing you can get back. But if things are done right, if he's willing to negotiate, if the Ducks give him permission, things like that.
Well, last year he went to Arizona, so not exactly a playoff contender.
McBain, no.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it depends. And so there is something of value that can be had back, and that's because Henry Thrun let the Ducks know at this point in time. And I think kudos to him, and this is the way, if you're going to do that, to go about it.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the whole, is it a loophole? Is it bad faith or whatever? I mean, this is something that he can do under the current rules, and the current rules are what they are. We can't change them, so it's not really worth hand-wringing over. But if the Ducks can find him a destination and somewhere that's willing to sign him, or that wants to sign him, that he wants to go to, because there's that part of the equation as well, then maybe the Ducks can get as high as a second-round pick. So
yeah. So
something to monitor there.
Yeah, I mean, the pick for that's kind of all over the place. But yeah, I think you're spot on. As high as second, probably more so in the 4th or 5th range.
Well, Jack McBain was a 3rd-round pick, and he wasn't necessarily lighting it up his final season of college, and Henry Thrun,
he was a 4th-round pick.
He was a 4th-round pick. So maybe that's where it goes down to a 3rd-round pick. Who knows? I feel like Thrun is pretty well thought of, but anyway.
Regardless, if the Ducks could recoup a 4th-round pick for him, I think that's a good return.
If they just get the pick back that they spent, that's just no harm, no foul. Yep. Okay, let's start with the toughest one, Adam Henrique. So he's got 1 more year left on his contract. He makes just underneath $6 million a year on his AAV, 5.825, and he's got a 10-team no-trade list, so 10 teams that he doesn't want to go to. We don't know the specifics of that, and we also don't know when that's submitted, if that's like a rolling thing. But what can the Ducks get back for Adam Henrique?
So Henrique's a tough one. And we were kind of talking about this before we went live, but there's not really a good comparable for Adam Henrique, because a lot of times guys with term aren't necessarily dealt at the deadline, right? It's more so a time for UFAs to get dealt, or if it's a younger guy with a lot more term or things like that. You don't typically see people in Adam Henrique's mold moved at the deadline. It's just not something you typically see. Having said that, that's not really poo-pooing on the idea that he's going to get moved. I think he still has a whole lot of value for a lot of different teams, especially if the Ducks end up retaining half of his contract for this year and next year, and you're getting Adam Henrique at $2.75 million. With the production that he's been able to do consistently, and if he's deeper in a lineup, that really helps out. But, I mean, Henrique's put up 19 goals this year in 55 games. He had 19 goals in 58 games last year. Like, he's still putting up about 20-plus goals in a regular season. I think if I was a team, I'd be pretty confident that he'd probably be able to do that again next year, putting up 33 points this year overall. And so kind of the one that comes to mind, because it's easy to do this comparison because it just happened, but Ryan O'Reilly. And they're completely different players. Ryan O'Reilly, I think, still has the value from the Conn Smythe win. If you look at his Rapham charts from Evolving Hockey, he's been good all over the place. His production hasn't been there, though, over the course of this season. He only had in St. Louis 19 points, 12 goals, 7 assists. So Adam Henrique has been significantly more productive than Ryan O'Reilly, and so you're trying to really compare the two, and it's hard because O'Reilly has a bit of that reputation for him, and he's a UFA. But at 3.75 mil, Ryan O'Reilly got the Blues a first, a second, and a third at 3.75 mil. And then an additional retention to get a fourth for the Minnesota Wild. And so all of that kind of being said, and then the other thing I look at is I think Rickard Rakell's an interesting trade comparison also. Because you look at Rickard Rakell last year when the Ducks traded him, he had 28 points in 51 games. And so Henrique currently has 33 points in 55 games. So Henrique's been a little bit more productive. And
he's
obviously
also
older, but has another year on his deal, everything like that. But if you remember, Rakell didn't sign till summer. This was not a deal that came with an extension for Rickard Rakell. And so I think that maybe there's a little bit of a comparable there. And Rakell got a second-round pick in Calle Klang, and there were some bodies going the other way in Zach Aston Reese and why involved in that trade.
Dominic Simone.
There we go, Dominic Simone.
Why do I remember that? I don't know.
Just for money, essentially, to make it work. And so kind of all that being said, I think that the thing that Henrique has going for him is the extra year. And so I think that provides more value than a Rickard Rakell. I don't think he necessarily has as much value as Ryan O'Reilly as a UFA because O'Reilly has that reputation. B. Doddles S brings up their different players in terms of O'Reilly and Henrique, but they can play similar roles. Power play, penalty kill, faceoff man, can be the second line center or third line center for a playoff team. Like the archetype's somewhat similar between the two of them, right?
No, I disagree. I mean,
Okay.
Adam Henrique hasn't even been playing center for like 3 years.
That's actually a good point.
Doesn't
But-
have this reputation whatsoever.
But in terms of, yeah, okay, fair. But he has been taking the face off, so if you're looking for something like that, he's someone that will add that there. Mm-hmm. Regardless, I think all that being said, I think Adam Henrique at 50% retained can get you a first-round pick.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those where you have to get a little creative because it's just not obvious. These kind of deals just don't, like you said, they just don't happen at the trade deadline. And so, if they have, they just haven't happened in the last, couple of years. So I think that the Ducks can definitely get back a first-round pick. And then from there, it really just depends who they're dealing with. Maybe they can involve some kind of third team, to spread out that cap hit like just happened with this O'Reilly trade. I'm not exactly sure how that would shake out, but I would just personally, based on everything you hear about teams being so strapped for cap space, I would bet against this deal happening this season, which is dumb because I think Adam Henrique makes so much sense for other teams. I don't see it getting done this deadline.
So Vegas, I don't know if you saw this today. Vegas put Mark Stone on LTIR officially.
Yeah.
And so the cap hit would go down to 2.9 is what Adam Henrique's would be. I don't expect, I know some people will say, well, you can get a third party to come in. To be able to retain.
That's also hard because no one has cap space.
Well, and there has never been a third team to come in and retain salary on an extra year.
Yeah.
It's only happened on UFA deals, which, keep in mind, the way the cap works is it accumulates over time. And so when you're trading a guy and we're looking at these raw AAVs, that's the overall annual average value. A certain amount of that at this point in time, like 50 some odd games, 60 some odd games over 82 has already been added to the cap sheet for the team that they've been on. You don't transfer that entire AAV. It accumulates over time. And so that's why teams with the third party retention, it makes sense because they're only adding, sure, you look at it and they're adding $1.5 million in terms of AAV, but in the actual money that they're adding, it's that AAV divided by 20 over 82. So it's not actually that much actual cash, actual cap, anything like that to their actual cap sheet at the end of the day. And when you're doing it like this, though, and you're adding the extra year on that, That's where it changes things. And that's where it changes things from the Ducks' perspective with salary retention also. Because if they're retaining through next season, that adds to the cap sheet. Having said that, I don't think the Ducks are going to be at the cap where $2.5 million is going to make a big difference next year. And so they should do full 50% retention to maximize the return, because what's more valuable this year and next year, cap space or that extra asset?
Yeah.
And so all that being said, Adam Henrique at 2.9, I think there's a lot of, you can do a lot worse for 2.9 million on your cap sheet than Adam Henrique.
Look at who is out there right now that we just, we're kind of assuming is going to get dealt, or at least has been up there. Like, Brock Besser still has term left. Mm-hmm. And I know that he's much younger than Adam Henrique, but in terms of value, I think Adam Henrique's probably a better value than Brock Besser right now.
Yeah.
So,
and even Timo Meier, I think Timo Meier provides a lot of value, but if we're looking on a per cap basis, right, what you're going to have to sign Timo Meier to, what you're going to have to give up, you could make the argument that getting Adam Henrique at $2.5 million with the assets you give up is going to be a better bet than Timo Meier in the long-term bet that you have to take there.
Yeah. Timo Meier's qualifying offer is $10 million.
Yeah. I genuinely think a lot of teams that are going to miss out on Timo Meier are going to be looking at Adam Henrique.
Well, that's the thing, right?
I think you look at the Devils, you look at the Hurricanes, you look at, I think even Toronto. I think Toronto, now they don't have a first round pick this year, so maybe that changes some things.
Supposedly they're not done.
Yeah. But I think not being done means, sounds like Kyle Dubas doesn't want to remove any of their prospects. So who knows? But he also said he didn't want to deal with rentals. So who knows if you can take what he said at face value. So I think there's a lot of teams out there that would be in the running for an Adam Henrique. I think a team like Edmonton could be on him, Vegas. I look at any team that's really in the hunt to win a cup, and I think Adam Henrique's a great fit.
Yeah, a lot of the players that are on this trade list for Frank Seravalli, there's a lot of players that do have term. So I do find it interesting, though, that despite that, Adam Henrique's name is not on this list of 45.
No, and it's interesting because his name is thrown out there by people.
Well, by people or person?
Fair. That person knows him, though.
Yeah, that person's also been wrong a couple of times.
And Matt brings up in our YouTube chat saying on 32 Thoughts podcast, Friedman brought up that the forward market is shrinking with Bertuzzi and other forwards seemingly off the trade
Taves. Block. Yeah. It's I'm not ruling it out. There's just a lot of bodies, and it's just.
Here's an interesting question:
Mm-hmm.
Who would you rather have? Patrick Kane for this year only, or Henrique for this year and next at full retention?
Oh, I would rather have Adam Henrique just for this year than Patrick Kane just for this year.
Okay, there you go.
So at least, yes. The Patrick Kane thing is just so wild to me, because
he had a great game against Toronto.
Yeah, he had the burst. That was his burst game.
That was a fantastic game for him and the Chicago Blackhawks in terms of his value, because oh boy, that boosted it.
Yeah, I understand that he can help a team, and he's not a bad player, but if you look at what he actually does and you look at his numbers, the reputation
his hip does not look good. He does not look like he's skated. The games against the Ducks, there were flashes of the old player, but most of the time, you could tell, he is not, age has come for him.
I'm fascinated to see what he's going to get, because he's 34.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is just no spring chicken.
Yep.
So,
all right.
Anyway, let's move on here. Maxime Comtois.
Oh, I did not have Comtois even on my list of players.
So I have a couple little tidbits.
Let's hear him, because I did the Henrique one.
So he's an RFA. So the Ducks don't really have to do anything. It's not as if it's a situation like with the UFAs where you risk losing them for nothing. The Ducks can keep him, or at least have the option of keeping him. His qualifying offers a year, $2.445 million. So that's not prohibitive to me. I think he's only got 3 years until he's a UFA. He turns 25 next January. So something like that. The only comparable deal that I could find, and this kind of makes sense to me, just from a gut check perspective, was last season you saw Nico Sturm get traded for Tyson Jost. So Nico Sturm, similar age range at the time, was an RFA. Tyson Jost had a year left. you keep hearing Comtois' name out there, and his, he's been getting healthy scratched a lot. So I just think that if you're going to trade Comtois, it's not going to be a situation where you're getting back draft picks, or it's going to be kind of like what we saw with Sturm and Jost, where you're kind of trading malcontents. So
I think if the Ducks are dead set on moving off from him, and it's at the point where they're just going to do what they do with Sam Steele and not qualify him over summer, then move him for whatever you can get. I think I would much rather, though, see him with a new coach next year and see what that new coach can get out of him. And I think that rehab that value.
He's not going to be an expensive player. I mean, in theory, you could not qualify him and then sign him to an even lower number. But regardless, I think there's enough intrigue with his game where I want to see him in a better situation in Anaheim. And worst case scenario, you then trade him next trade deadline if things really aren't working out. So
we're just going to go back and forth, I think. Let's do it like that. So I'm going to put a name out there now.
Okay.
And I'm going off the beaten path also before we get to the bigger names.
Okay.
So I was listening to the DFO show today with Frank Saravalli. And they were talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs in this trade and the fact that it's locked in that they're pretty much playing the Tampa Bay Lightning. And so they're trying to figure out, how do the Tampa Bay Lightning respond to this? And they were kind of saying that they need.
I don't think you need to respond when you're the one that's winning every year.
They need a depth defenseman and depth forwards. And you look at what they've done over the last couple of years, and they've identified some younger talent that have term associated with it to give them a valuable cap, or essentially a cap hit that works long term for multiple years, and they value that. And
Can I guess who you're about to say on the Ducks?
And they specifically mentioned Brandon Hagel as a example of this last year. And for those that don't remember, Brandon Hagel was traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning along with 2 4th-round picks for Taylor Radish and Boris Kachuk, who are just kind of thrown in. I don't think either of those players were really highly touted prospects. And 2 first-round picks. Top 10 protected, but 2 first-round picks in 2023 and 2024. Who do you think I'm going to mention? Who do you think Frank Saravalli mentioned?
I think I now remember that. I saw you mention this in our Discord, so I don't want to spoil it. Just go ahead.
It is Isaac Lundestrom was a person he mentioned.
But does he have multiple? He has 1 year left. I don't see the comparison there.
Well,
did Hagel have 1 year left?
Hagel had 2 years left.
Okay, so that doesn't really fit what he's saying, but because I thought you were going to say Frank Vetrano.
No, well, he has this year and next year. Well, it does fit in the sense of they value guys that can fit in their bottom 6 that aren't UFAs right away, and he's actually 1 year left and is an RFA after that, so they could keep him at a cost-controlled value after that. And I mean, I would assume his qualifying offer is not going to be that high. They could just give him his qualifying offer and go from there, and keep his rights for another year. And so I think with that being considered, I think you and I are both lower on Isaac Lundestrom, but I do think that there is probably a decent amount of value within the trade marketplace for a guy like him, a guy that is known as being a defensively responsible center, a guy that is locked up for this year and next at a manageable cap hit, that it helps you keep more flexibility by having a guy like that in your bottom 6. And I genuinely think Isaac Lundestrom, if he went in a deal like that to Tampa Bay, could get you a first-round pick.
Oh, man, I don't see that. A first-round pick for Isaac Lundestrom?
Brandon Hagel did not have that much of a track record.
I need to now see what was going on.
Brandon Hagel had 1 full season in the NHL prior to last year. Or last year was his first full season in the NHL. And he had a little bit of higher production. He had 21
goals, though.
He had higher production.
In 55 games.
He had 6, and Lundestrom had 16 goals, and Hagel's a winger versus Lundestrom being a center.
So Lundestrom has less goals and he plays a different position? Like, what exactly is the argument here?
Teams value centers over wingers. And I'm not saying the same trade. I'm not saying 2 firsts.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you would say that. No.
And so that's where I'm getting at, is that I think that that's the framework for a deal like that.
Yeah, but here's my question though. Is there a ton of upside to trading Isaac Lundestrom? Like, let's say you get a first round pick. Is the 30th pick better than having Isaac Lundestrom under team control for the next few years, and maybe he develops?
So here's where I'm at with that. is that I think Isaac Lundestrom has more value right now to a team that is cap strapped than he does to a Ducks team because of his cap hit, because of his contract. The Ducks can't really make that much value out of that because they have so much cap space. Having a guy like that under contract, sure, you want to hope he develops everything like that because it helps you out from a development perspective, long-term planning. But I think if you look at the Ducks' long-term plan, they're most likely going to get a center out of this draft that is going to probably be NHL ready next year. And they already have McTavish and Zegras. And they're going to have Nathan Gaucher also. Probably be NHL ready in the next year or two.
Yeah, I just
like
again, he's a cheap forward. And at some point the Ducks aren't going to have cap space forever.
But my point is that over that time that he is cheap, that Lundestrom is cheap, Gaucher is going to be on the team. That you're going to have any of these next three guys that they take in the top three, those guys will be on the team. Like there is someone that is going to be supplementing that spot on the roster. And so I think that just you get more value out of trading him because you're not getting the value out of his cap hit right now. You don't get you don't get the cap flexibility added to next year.
I pushed back that he gets you a first round pick, and I pushed back that he's...
If he does get you a first, do you move him?
If he does get you a first?
Yeah.
Who's first? Tampa Bay's first?
Tampa Bay's... So they've given up their 23 and 24 first. So it would have to be...
I'd probably do it, but it's not like... I'm not convinced that it's this like awesome trade either. Because, I mean, Lundestrom was basically that. He was a 20...
Yeah, you're recouping the asset.
Yeah, like it's not this huge value for me anyway. So
let's see. What picks does Tampa have? Yeah, Tampa doesn't have a first until 2025.
So that at least could be somewhat interesting because at some point Tampa Bay will decline.
Yeah.
So there's your argument. Give me get yourself the 2026 Tampa Bay first round pick.
It was just something that, and there was no actual insight, just to be clear. Frank didn't say that he had information making Isaac Lundestrom available. It was just him trying to find a fit for for a similar type of player that Tampa Bay may identify. And so that's what that was. I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think trading Isaac Lundestrom is a death knell by any means. Just to be clear here.
So okay,
should we take a break?
Yeah, it's probably time for a break. Yeah, you're right. That went by way quick. All right. This episode is brought to you by 714 Tickets. So I think it's agreed that there's no better way to watch hockey than going to the games live and in person. That's where 714 Tickets comes in. 714 Tickets is a locally owned ticket company in Anaheim that never charges you taxes or service fees, unlike StubHub or Ticketmaster. They're located right in front of Honda Center, but also have a website, 714tickets.com, where you can earn 5% back in rewards on every online purchase. So, to recap, you can see your favorite team play, you can pay no fees, and you can earn rewards back on your favorite purchases. And I mean, we're talking about the Ducks, right now. They are going to make a bunch of trades over the next week. There are probably going to be guys coming back, and some of them might be some younger guys to add to the roster right away. With 714 Tickets, that allows you to go see them in person before kind of next year. Get a view of them, see what they're like on the ice. So really a no-brainer to use 714 Tickets. You can shop your Ducks tickets at 714tickets.com or stop by their office for a more personal feel. So you can check them out and use the promo code CTP to get 10% off your purchase. So please go check them out, 714 Tickets. Like we've said, the no fees, everything like that when you're dealing with the current marketplace for tickets.
And support someone local.
Yeah. So go check them out. Use the code CTP at checkout to get 10% off your purchase.
Okay, great. Now let's forge ahead. So I guess it's my turn.
Yep.
I will return to the beaten path. And I'm going to try to just get some of these. I'm going to get an easy one out of the way first.
Okay.
Nathan Beaulieu. He's a UFA. Here's my comparison for Nathan Beaulieu. You want to hear it?
I already know what it is.
Nathan Beaulieu. He was traded for a conditional 7th round pick last season. So there's a nice and neat comp for you guys. Could you argue that Ben Hutton in 2021 for a 5th rounder would be like a peak return for Nathan Beaulieu?
So he's played more games this season than he did last year.
I'm guessing that Beaulieu gets you a 6th round pick this year.
Yeah.
I'm going to split the difference here.
Sixth or 7th round pick. I mean, to be honest, this might be a weird thing for me to say. I would probably just keep him on the roster. The team, you need bodies on this team.
Yeah, you need bodies, and it's like we're just saying here, a 6th round pick,
Like
7th round
if
pick.
you can get like a 5th rounder, sure. 6th round, 7th round, sure. Get as many assets you can. But I also think the Ducks are going to be bad for the rest of the year. I think having a warm body like him on the roster isn't going to hurt you.
And
like,
by the way, Nathan Beaulieu helps you get Connor Bedard.
yeah, that
Like he might.
well, that's where I was going with it.
He deserves a belt, like a WWE style belt, for his contributions to the tank this year.
I was trying to dance around it nicely, and you just went for it. So yes,
He actually probably has more value to this roster long term on the roster for the final stretch than whatever pick he gets you.
Lou's asking warm body as compared opposed to cold. I mean,
like he's alive. Like he's
yeah.
yes. Anyway,
yeah, exactly.
All right,
it's a saying,
well,
Lou.
We're down to a few names, so let's see who you've got.
I am going to go with Dmitry Kulikov. And the comparable that I have for him, I have 2 actually. And I don't
3.
think. Well, I have 3 also. Technically, I have 3 listed that could work for it. I've got. I try to really keep it to the most recent seasons, just because that helps you a little bit more with value. And so you look at some of the deals for UFA defensemen last year and kind of fitting the same mold. And so you have Brett Kulak, who got William Lagesson, a 2nd round pick from Edmonton, and a 7th round pick from Edmonton. And the 2nd round pick is conditional. If the Oilers reach the Stanley Cup final, Montreal will receive Edmonton's 2023 second. So it's just about which year it's going to be. And then Justin Braun was moved from the Philadelphia Flyers to the New York Rangers for a 3rd round pick. And if you want to go back to 2021, Dmitry Kulikov.
Yeah, there you go.
Traded for a 4th round pick. Did I nail all 3 of yours?
I think you just said. You said Brett Kulak.
I said Kulak, Braun, Kulikov.
I didn't have Kulak in there because he's a little younger than Kulikov is.
Fair.
Kulikov's 32. I had Braun, yes, 3rd round pick. I had Jordy Ben from 2021, as kind of like a bottom,
Yeah.
like setting the spectrum, and then Dmitry Kulikov. So I feel like Kulikov can get you a 3rd round pick this year.
And I think if you retain half, maybe it bumps up to a 2nd rounder.
Yeah, to me, I don't know if 2nd round is necessarily in play.
I think if a team could get Dmitry Kulikov for 1.125, or if you could get it's actually something I don't know.
Well,
how far down you can get retention to. I don't know can you get retention underneath minimum salary? If you get a 3rd team retaining salary on it, so it's
well, isn't that with the Leafs? Well, they didn't do that with O'Reilly, but
no.
Didn't the
regardless,
Wild anyway.
I think Kulikov at a accruing cap hit of 1.125 mil for the rest of the season, I think there's a lot of value to that. I think that they could get a 3rd round pick. I think maybe it bumps up to a 2nd round pick even. Well,
also the blue line market is just not that deep to me. There's
Look
a
at
big drop off.
Gavrikov is like the belle of the ball right now.
Yes, he's the belle of the ball, and I mean Kulikov hasn't been great this season, but I think he's serviceable, especially on a good team. And some of the names that are up there, on these trade boards, I don't think Erik Karlsson. I'm praying Erik Karlsson gets traded because that would be so much fun, but I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
Chris Johnston, I think, had him on his trade board at 9th.
Karlsson?
No. Kulikov.
Oh, well. Anyway, if I were to predict it and to look into my crystal ball, I will say 3rd round pick.
Yeah.
Although Justin Braun was 35.
Yeah,
but I think Braun's reputation is a little stronger.
I think if we are going high end's a 2nd round pick. Low end is probably a 4th round pick.
Yeah, I would say somewhere in that medium.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I will go next. Where should I go to next? Let's stick to the blue line here. I'll do Kevin Shattenkirk.
Okay.
So he's 34. I honestly just went straight back to Justin Braun. Like, to me, that's a very similar profile. Like, Braun was 35, like similar age, veteran. Maybe Shattenkirk isn't quite held in the same esteem at this point because of how he's declined a little bit, but he can still help you offensively on the power play in a lower role. So I think Shattenkirk can probably get you a 3rd round pick, maybe like a 3rd to 4th round pick.
I think he could even get you up to a 2nd round pick, to be honest.
I feel like you're the optimist between us on those.
100%. 100%.
Do we think Shattenkirk's even going to get dealt?
I think he will be.
I go back and forth on if that's going to happen or not.
I think they will get an offer that you can't refuse.
Well, I think if it's a 2nd round, like if it's a 3rd round pick, you do it.
I think it's a 2nd round pick, you obviously do it.
But if it's a 2nd round pick, you don't get off the phone until the deal is done.
God, I mean, Ben Sherratt got a 1st round pick last year. That's still...
Yeah, but Sherratt wasn't 34.
No, I know. It's more so I'm just going through the trades, kind of looking for a good comparable right now.
Sherratt's name will come back up. I'll just say that.
Sherratt's name will come back up?
In this conversation.
For who?
In this conversation. Okay, well, anyway, do you have any other thoughts on the one they call Shat Deuces?
I think if we're saying Kulikov is a 3rd, I think Shattenkirk gets more than that due to the offensive reputation. I actually I think Shattenkirk to the Lightning could make a lot of sense because it's a player they know, a player that they know can work in their system, and they need depth defensemen. And I think Shattenkirk's a guy that they know works there. So I think the Lightning would be a team at full retention on a Kevin Shattenkirk. They'd give up a 2nd round pick.
Okay, I'm gonna predict 3rd.
Okay.
I'm very curious to see. Like we need. Well, it's a good thing this is being recorded because we can look back once the dust settles.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. I am going to go with Anthony Stolarz.
Oh wow, is Anthony Stolarz first off going to be like available to play hockey by the trade deadline? Are we going to see him again until the deadline?
There's not a whole lot of backup goalies that have been dealt over the years. I think I saw Kakkonen for Middleton as being one recently.
There you
The
go.
one that I was able to see, I mean, sure, that's one, but that doesn't
Marc-Andre
really
Fleury?
Vitek Vanacek, his signing rights along with a 2nd round pick were traded to the Devils by the Capitals, and this is a summer deal, so not a deadline deal, but maybe you can make a little bit of this for a 2nd round pick and a 3rd round pick. So essentially Vitek Vanacek for a 3rd round pick as an RFA for his signing rights. And this is a guy that was waiver claimed, things like that. So that's where I was thinking. So maybe Stolarz gets you a 3rd round pick.
Yeah, I just saw Fleury get a conditional 2nd round pick and just thought immediately, okay, well, if Marc-Andre Fleury doesn't even get you a for sure 2nd round pick, then Anthony Stolarz is going to be below that.
Yeah.
So I would say, 3rd to 5th round pick is his range.
Yeah, I think 3rd's the high end of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. This is kind of like the opposite of last year's trade deadline, where the Ducks have a lot of guys who I feel like get you similar-ish returns in this kind of mid-round range. But I still think these are trades you have to make.
Well, it was funny. I was thinking about that same thing today, but the Ducks last year were almost the belle of the ball from the trade perspective.
They had all the big names.
Yeah. This year, because I remember last year we looked
What's
at
the opposite of belle of the ball? Actually, don't say it.
I don't.
Whatever it is.
The dunce?
The beast of the ball?
No,
Anyway,
but
you were saying something.
The ugly ducklings. There we go, Winterborn. There we go. Mm-hmm. You looked at any of the trade deadline boards, and the Ducks players they had 3 in the top 10 typically. And this year, it's funny, you don't see many of them, but I think they're all going to get traded. I think there's a lot of assets to be gained from this. So
it's just the market for these kind of middling guys is pretty saturated. Is the only issue.
Is it?
There's just a lot of names out there.
Yeah.
There's so many guys that could get dealt, and the Ducks have been a tire
I don't
fire.
think there's a lot of just straight sellers, though.
Fair.
I think that's the thing the Ducks have going for them is that, sure, there are other bad teams, but I'm not sure all those bad teams have guys that other teams would want. We talked about it, why we expected the Ducks to be decent this year, because you looked at the pieces that they added to this team, and there were actually good pieces, and we thought that they could make a good team.
Yeah.
And I think other GMs will probably see that. And as compared to, like we talked about, the Chicagos of the world, the Arizonas of the world, different things like that, where these were teams that were built to be bad. They took on bad contracts. And so it's not as if like the Coyotes are going to be able to flip a Zach Kassian, for instance. Like the Ducks have these guys that were signed or brought in to try to help this team this year. And if things went awry, they could be moved. And so I don't think there's other teams in the same place as the Ducks with assets like that.
Well, I think Not a Real Duck brings up a good point that there's a lot of teams kind of in this wild card race. There's a lot of teams trying to stay alive. So maybe desperation will help the Ducks in this scenario. Okay. Who should I go to next? Should I save the best for last? Probably. Let's see here. Let's get this guy accounted for. Derek Grant, the Elite 1C, number 38 for your Anaheim Ducks. So here's my comparison right off the hop. Nick Delorier. I didn't go for Derek Grant's the last time it was traded, although I should have done that.
You should have.
But Nick Delorier got a 3rd-round pick. Derek Brassard got a 4th-round pick. Andrew Cogliano got a 5th-round pick. So in 2024, I don't know if Tyler Mott is necessarily a perfect comparison, but he got a 4th-round pick last year and a prospect. So I feel like that's what you're probably going to see for Derek Grant, is somewhere in this range of 3rd to 5th-round pick. Maybe a little bit on the higher end, but I wouldn't expect anything more or anything less than that.
Yeah, probably.
Are you distracted?
I'm trying to figure out. I want to leave John Klingberg for you.
You don't have to. You can take the one they call Klingy.
I've got because I want to leave it for you because I don't have great comparables for him.
Oh, okay.
Which is why I'm leaving it for you. So I'm gonna just go with a weird one right now. Do you think Sam Carrick is comparable to Tyler Mott?
Oh wow, that is he even a UFA?
No, he's got another year left on his deal.
He was just re-signed. You're heartless.
Am I? Or do I want him traded?
He probably just bought a home, but in your area.
I don't think in my area.
You want to kick out your neighbors?
He would have bought a home for a lot more than I did.
Okay, well, Sam Carrick.
Do you think Tyler Mott's a good comparable for Sam Carrick?
Well, Tyler Mott's once again a UFA, though, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
So, it's not...
Do you think that return could be had? Julien Gauthier is a guy that supposedly the Ottawa Senators liked.
It was Gauthier in like a 7th round pick?
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, I feel like Tyler Mott is just specifically valuable to the Rangers. And so I almost just like can't take anything away from that deal. Also, it's kind of struck me lately how I feel like the Rangers are just a very bizarre franchise. Where
100%.
I feel like their GM is like slowly getting smarter from whatever happened a couple of years ago. But then they have this coach who they constantly need to placate, and they have to take his toys away. It reminds me a lot of Michel Therrien and Marc Bergevin, what's going on over there. But they have this amazing, they have these great players. So, anywho, no, I don't see that kind of return for Sam Carrick. But if you want to trade him, like he's not costing anyone very much, and he's serviceable. But it would be very heartless of you to kick out your neighbor. I'm just fully making up this narrative now.
You 100% are. Okay, I've left John Klingberg for you.
Oh boy. Well, this will be contentious. So I'll start with the worst case scenario.
Okay.
I think the worst case scenario for John Klingberg is Mike Riley in 2021, which was a 3rd round pick. And Mike Riley at that time, when he was traded, had 19 points in 40 games and was younger than Klingberg. Something to keep in mind. And Klingberg this season, he's at 20 points in 47 games. So his point per game is actually less than Mike Riley, and he's older. But John Klingberg has a much, I would say, stronger reputation.
Yep.
Although the league kind of passed up on him long term over the last offseason, so keep in mind. So
they passed up on him long term at the contract he wanted, at the AAV he wanted.
So the worst case to me is Mike Riley. That's my anchor, is a 3rd round pick. Then the best case scenario, you brought him up, is Ben Sherrod. And Ben Sherratt was 30, so same exact age as John Klingberg last deadline, and he got a first, he got a prospect, kind of like a whatever prospect, and a 4th round pick. And then the other comparable, also age 30, also a right hand shot for the Anaheim Ducks, Josh Manson. So
Yeah,
he got a 2nd round pick plus Helson. And the reason why I kind of go to these guys is because they're not guys who were on the eve of their kind of next big contract. These are guys that are kind of in their 30s now that aren't going to go and fetch I mean, I don't think Klingberg's going to get that. So,
well, and I think it's easy to just, I mean, from pure contract perspective and looking at value, right? I think that John Klingberg has more value than Josh Manson. Like I think that is
a I don't know if I can get there.
He was offered a 7x7 by the Dallas Stars,
by his team,
and the Ducks offered him 7 years. Also,
did the Ducks offer Josh
Manson
a 7x7?
No, but the Colorado Avalanche, like he ended up signing in Colorado for what 4x4 was what Manson got.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
You're looking at similar guys that were going to be UFAs in a similar time period. And it was by their same team, right? Josh Manson was on the Colorado Avalanche. And the Stars offered John Klingberg 7x7. The Avalanche offered Manson 4x4. I think that goes to show you who, at least prior to the season, this is obviously not accounting for this season that could take down his value, but John Klingberg was more valuable to teams than Josh Manson was. They provide different value in different ways, so it would need to be the right fit and things like that. But I think the key thing with John Klingberg is that I think a lot of teams can look at the Ducks and just simply say, this is a weird season.
Bad environment.
And you hope that essentially the John Klingberg of the past is who he is. And I think that
he's still been like modestly productive.
Well,
it's
if you look at the micro stats for him also that Corey Schneider has tracked, he's been good at breaking the puck out clean and breaking and creating chances for teams.
He's basically been the same player he's always been.
Yeah.
Like, he just doesn't have the points because the team around him sucks.
I mean, B. Dottle says this. I mean, we talk about Klingberg having a down year, but he's basically been himself just on a worse team.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great way to put it. And so
like the player profile is basically the same. It's just that he doesn't get the credit for
the system's
production.
not there to help him, basically.
Yeah.
And he's not on the first power play unit. I honestly think that a first round pick is doable for him. I think it's the high end, but I think it's doable. I think if you're trying to identify teams, I think if the Edmonton Oilers fall out of the Erik Karlsson race, if that just doesn't end up happening, right? Because of all the different variety of factors that come into play that make that deal so hard to make. I think John Klingberg is a really nice fit there for exactly what they want, which is supposedly the Oilers players have gone to management and said, we feel like we play at our best when there's a guy that can move the puck out and transition quickly. And if you look at the microstat data from John Klingberg this year, that's what he's done. Like, people will say, well, he turns the puck over, everything like that, and sure. But he more often than not exits the zone with possession.
Yeah, and I mean, he's definitely not Erik Karlsson this year.
No.
In terms of pure value, like a value play, is it more wise for the Oilers to bet on just kind of a short-term Klingberg situation and pay, let's call it a first-round pick plus prospect, like at most, or basically move heaven and earth to bring in Erik Karlsson, and you have no idea if he's going to continue to be this good year over year, and you have this kind of back end of the contract you got to deal with. Like, I think there's a case to be made. Klingberg is just like a wiser bet for the Oilers.
Yeah, and so just for those wondering, John Klingberg is above replacement at exiting with possession, exiting with percentage per 60. He's good at retrieving the puck per 60, although he does have some botched retrievals, but he's good at when he retrieves the pucks, those leads to exits. He's good at entering the zone with passing plays. Too. He shoots the puck. He has a lot of shot assists, actually. No, he doesn't shoot the puck a lot. He has a lot of shot assists, so he sets up shots by other teammates.
Yeah,
a bunch.
And he's been productive lately. He's got 8 points in his last 12 games. So anyway, just to kind of wrap that up, I would say that if I were to predict, I don't think he gets you the Ben Sherratt Motherlode. I think it's going to be somewhere between Manson and Riley. I think probably a second round pick with like a lesser tier prospect, or a second round pick with a lower pick.
I think it's a first round pick. I'm just going for it. Let's be positive here.
And it's possible. Like I'm. This is my opinion. But it's possible. Yes.
And here's the thing for anyone kind of that wants to say this is a bad signing as a result of that, because he's not even going to get you a first round pick at best, or he might not get you a first round pick. Like even if he gets a second round pick, like the Ducks needed to spend that money.
They got a free second round. Well, they paid $7 million for a second round pick.
Because I think Frank Seravalli was talking about this. Now, if you were to talk to the Ducks and Pat Verbeek, they would have hoped that essentially with that $7 million payment, they were at least buying a first round pick plus over summer. That's what that $7 million was doing for them. And I think what that misses in context is that I think that the Ducks had to spend money. They were underneath the cap floor. And so it's, and I think that is what that misses. So whether it was a John Klingberg or spending it elsewhere, they had to spend that money. So regardless of what they went out and did, or whatever John Klingberg ends up getting them, they need to spend that money, and it ends up getting them whatever pick they end up getting.
Yeah, I feel like I fully I agree with that, and I've had to argue with people with that exact reasoning before. So don't take this as me saying like I don't think this was I think this was a bad investment or whatever. Like they just had to spend the money. Like if the Ducks weren't in the cap situation they were in last summer, I think it's a completely different conversation
100%.
If they go out and get John Klingberg. So yeah, it was a great move. Like this, the asset play was always there for the Ducks, and they're going to cash in. So regardless of what they get, this is like a net positive for them.
Okay. So let's run through it real quick before we get to some questions, but let's say I'll run through the players we listed and look at what do you yes or no?
Got one more.
We do? More. Okay.
Yeah. How dare you besmirch the Magna name?
He's not getting moved.
He's a UFA. Is Andrew Cogliano his comp? Same age last year? 30s?
Was on the team this year.
Yeah.
No, he was a waiver claim. I don't think he's getting moved.
Fine.
All right. Let's run through the players and say yes or no on terms of their move, and then just kind of out of curiosity think about how many picks the Ducks are going to have at the end of this. Stolars.
No.
Okay. Henrique.
No.
I'm going yes. So
did you say anything for Stolars?
Yeah. Oh, Stolars, I'm going no also. I don't think there's value there. Or there's enough value to get the stretch that I did with Vitek Vanacek. Klingberg.
Yes.
Kulikov.
Yes.
Beaulieu.
I'm going no. You talked me into no.
Okay. Shattenkirk.
I'm going to go no.
I'm going yes.
Okay.
And then the other one, let's go Lundestrom and Comtois.
No on Lundestrom.
Okay.
And I'm going to go yes on Comtois. Just for a little chaotic pick. Not because I think it's going to happen. Just
I'll go no.
Chaos.
I'll go no on both. Derek Grant.
I'm going to go no.
I'm going to go no. Sam Carrick.
No.
Okay. So we both agree on.
So you didn't say anything for Carrick.
I said no.
You said okay.
Oh, sorry. I meant no.
Okay.
It's the wine talking. Let's go with that. So we both agree that Klingberg will be moved, that Kulikov will be moved.
Yep.
And that's it? Those are the only two that we fully agree on?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say, so if it's Klingberg and Kulikov, the Ducks will probably walk away with a second and a third. Most likely.
Between the two of them?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to go... Yeah, because maybe they get a prospect in the Klingberg deal.
Yeah. And then I think Adam Henrique will get moved, and I think Klingberg could get you a first, but I'm just going to go...
You think Adam Henrique gets moved?
I think Adam Henrique gets moved. I think Pat Verbeek knows what needs to get done. So we're going with that.
It makes a lot of sense to
It does.
honestly, what would you rather the Ducks do? Trade none of their pending UFAs or trade Adam Henrique? Or let me rephrase that. Would you rather they trade all their pending UFAs and not Adam Henrique, or Adam Henrique and none of their pending UFAs?
I think Adam Henrique has the most value. So
Right.
Adam
That's
Henrique.
the thing. Like, would you rather a pile of like third round picks or probably some pretty interesting stuff for Adam
Like,
Henrique?
I think realistically what I would like to see from this deadline is, if I'm saying best case scenario, Adam Henrique and John Klingberg are both moved and the Ducks get 2 additional first round picks. Whatever year they are is whatever year they are, but the Ducks add those to their massive haul and their prospect system that they have.
Yeah.
So I think you can maybe get some seconds and third in there with Shattenkirk and Kulikov and maybe some additional pieces there. But I think the real bells of the ball for this Ducks team, if we're going to go with that continually, it is Henrique, Klingberg, and maybe Kulikov.
Yeah, I think Klingberg and Kulikov for sure get moved. And so this is definitely not going to be a kind of franchise-altering deadline like last year's was. But I think as we've kind of outlined...
Added value.
Yeah, as long as Pat Verbeek is active and there's demand, which I think there will be, the Ducks are going to just walk out of it with more draft picks in tow, maybe some prospects. And that's what they need at this stage. There's no sense in bringing any of these guys back right now, at least, or, finishing out the season with them. Although, as we outlined with Beaulieu, maybe it's better to have them on the roster. So we'll see. But I don't think that the Ducks are in a good position here.
And one thing I want to add on this is, it's brought up in our Twitch chat that you only are allowed 3 salary retentions on your cap sheet. And so we're talking about all these players and saying, oh, if you retain salary, you're only allowed 3. So I think if Henrique is moved, that's a for sure one. I think Klingberg is another for sure one. And then maybe Kulikov is a third one. And the Ducks end up with 3 for the end of the year, because Kulikov and Klingberg end off the books over summer. So
I would agree with that.
Just something to keep in mind. All right, question time?
Let's do it.
All right, so we're going to start with our Discord, and then we will move on over to Twitter, and then eventually to YouTube and Twitch. So YouTube and Twitch, get ready, start throwing questions in, put questions in the front. I'll see him. We'll get some once we get to you guys. Hey OG Flo said, is it fair to infer that the Ducks culture seems very good despite the team being so bad this season? The effort appears to be there, and players seem to be close with each other with no apparent drama or in-team issues. What is your take? Do you guys have any confirmation of this from anyone you know who is around the team on a regular basis?
No, but I think from what we've seen in these Players Lounge interviews that they do, it seems like there's good camaraderie between the players. Of course, we can't know. There's really no way of knowing unless you have someone in there that tells you or something of that nature. Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't. I don't get the sense that the wheels are falling off the wagon from that perspective. But again, it's just speculation.
Yep, agreed. Hey, Odifo said, who is more responsible for Max Comtois' lack of emergence as a top 6 forward? Max Comtois or Dallas Aikens? Also, will Verbeek trade Max Comtois, and if so, what could the return fetch? So we already talked about the return, but let's get to the first part of that.
I think the person most responsible for Max Comtois' lack of development, and this goes for other players too, is the Ducks franchise, Bob Murray, the last few years, where I think the player development has just been really lacking. And you see a lot of guys get drafted in the top 2 rounds and that they don't really improve with the Ducks, or they kind of just stay the same or sometimes get worse. So I think that that's more of an organizational indictment. Yes, of course, the player needs to put in the work, and Dallas Aikens basically dragged Comtois' work ethic publicly. Was it yesterday or a couple days ago? But I put it more on the actual organization itself than either coach or player.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then, hey, Odifo, I'll give him a shout out on this, but we already answered. Was the most likely return for Kevin Shattenkirk? We talked about that. So Shaken Wing said, how far can we drop if we finish last in the NHL?
Third.
Yeah, okay. I was trying to understand exactly where you're saying. Yeah, third is the farthest that you can drop in the draft. Let's see. And what would Gibson bring back, and who would potentially want him?
Oh, God. Well, I have not done any prep for that one, but I don't think Gibson's getting moved at the trade deadline. if he does, it'll be a draft day or kind of off-season move. I honestly don't really see teams interested in him until he really, like, I don't see the Ducks getting a really good return for him until he actually shows that he can turn things around. Because listening to the PDO cast the other day, and the fact that teams just don't really invest that much at the goaltending position cap-wise these days, unless you have one of the, whatever it is, 7 best goalies in the league, I just don't see a team talking itself into saying, okay, unless the Ducks retain, and maybe that's what changes things, we're going to take on this $6.4 million a year cap hit for a goalie who hasn't really shown anything in the last 4 years. And yes, there's a situational element to that, but I don't know. I think that really for the Ducks to make that something of that deal, they're going to have to retain. And then at that point, it's just that opens up another conversation.
Yep. Really quickly, one thing that's being mentioned in our Twitch chat that I wanted to briefly address is kind of the Ducks may have to take back some bad contracts to be able to stay above the cap floor. And I don't have full confirmation on this. I need to run the numbers on it, but I actually think they're going to be okay. Their cap hit kind of accruing is about 68 mil, and the current salary cap floor is 60 million. And so just one thing to keep in mind, like I've said, salary cap space accrues over time. So the Ducks are at 68 million right now. They could drop below that at some point in time, and they've accrued enough where they're still going to end up at the end of the season over the salary cap floor and be okay on that side of it. So that's just something to keep in mind for this, is that they could end up being below their AAV, kind of totaling up underneath 60 mil, and still be okay at the end of the year. So that's just one thing to keep in mind there. But Mike Appa AG said, where was one Felix Sicard when Sami Zayn was pinned by the undisputed Universal Heavyweight Champion, the head of the table, your tribal chief, Roman Reigns?
Yeah, WWE was in Montreal this weekend. Great organization, great choice.
Screwed over a local boy.
I co-sign all of it.
They could have given Sami Zayn one of the biggest pops of all time, building off a great story, building off his fantastic reception in Montreal, and they decided to just let Roman win.
Yeah, sometimes you don't want to pay too much fan service. I legitimately don't know.
I know.
You know what? I'm as qualified to talk about wrestling as like an expert, because this whole thing is just...
Oh, it's just storytelling. It's storytelling.
Exactly.
It's just like if you're critiquing a movie. There's no... No one's actually qualified to do it. Some people study it more in depth and have some more historical knowledge.
Like the technical elements of...
But that doesn't necessarily mean, just because someone understands the technical elements doesn't mean that the average person is going to love it as much as them. Like, there's a difference between a critic and loving a movie and just a normal average casual person.
Good on the legendary company to stay unpredictable.
I mean, this was a very predictable finish. Roman Reigns winning going into WrestleMania was the predictable finish. Sami Zayn winning would have been unpredictable. Lou's just always good for a weird take that I don't have a great opinion on, though. Cool Ranch Doritos. Just why?
They're fine.
I'm not the biggest Cool Ranch Dorito fan.
Doritos Locos Taco Cool Ranch at Taco Bell.
I'm not a Dorito. Here's the thing with Doritos Locos Tacos. I went a long time without getting Taco Bell, and I tried it over the last year or two, and it was just really underwhelming.
I mean, yeah, it's Taco Bell. Like, all of these places are just whatever, but...
Yeah, but it was so hyped up.
Okay. Well, let's move on to some questions.
Okay. So we're going to go to Twitter now. And so we've got this one from Hockey Rush saying, Jake, question for this week. I've been trying to find a source that tells us what NHL scouts are at games but aren't having any luck. Do you or Felix know of any? Typically the beat writers for different teams, if they see the scouts listed on the press box spot, they'll tweet those out. There's not one that typically compiles it, but you'll find different accounts throughout different things. I know in our Discord, and this is a very subtle plug for Patreon, but if our Discord at patreon.com/cashspawn, if you're at the $1 tier, a lot of times people will post in our Discord a tweet with where whatever scouts are at whatever games.
Yeah.
So There's a subtle plug. Tony X3124 at Kid3124 said, questions, dudes. Should the Ducks trade one of either Boston or Colorado second round picks for Vitaly Krasov?
Oh, I saw that question. I forgot to do my researching. I'm going to go out on a limb, though, and say no.
Okay.
Just because I feel like it's always a bad sign when you have this kind of formerly highly touted prospect that's now unloved where they are. Although I will say that the Rangers organization tends to make kind of weird decisions. And if you look into his tracking data, there are some interesting little markers there. It seems to be a good playmaker. But I just don't know if you should pay that much. Like, I don't know if he'll actually cost you that much.
Yeah.
A second round pick for a guy that just the team does not want seems a little hard to believe.
And he also added, and how cool would it be if the Ducks were the third team to eat salary so that the Oil could get Karlsson? IMO, they should be a la Minnesota and the Bryan. No. Not in the Karlsson deal.
Well, no, not for Karlsson, but I just mean in general. I think that's a role that the Ducks could play.
Agreed. And we'll get to that in our Twitch comments about kind of eating salary. But so that the Oilers could get Karlsson, and so you're eating salary for so let's just put this into context real quick. There are, if I go to San Jose's cap sheet, I'm just trying to look at what Erik Karlsson has left on his deal.
Well, he's got 4 years.
He's got 4 more years four more years after this one at $11.5 million. So what is that going to be? 5.25 over 2, so 2.125. So the Ducks for the next 4 years would be paying Erik Karlsson at 2.125 on their cap sheet.
Well, what if it gets you a first?
It's not. I mean,
because someone's gonna get paid well for this. Because if it were to happen,
here's the question, and this is the tough thing to answer: what's more valuable over those next 4 years? Those cap flexibility or the first round pick?
I think
with knowing that the Ducks are going to be having to pay Mason McTavish, Trevor Zegras,
but
Troy
I feel
Terry,
like you've made
Jamie Drysdale
going the other way.
Jamie Drysdale, Connor Bedard. They're going to have to pay all of these guys over the next 4 years.
I'm just going to punt and say it just depends what you can get. Like if you get something that's interesting.
I think that
it's not a prohibitive number, and the cap's going to go up at some point.
I think that, well, depending on what happens with the RSNs, we'll see.
Within the next 4 years.
Who knows? I like how you completely missed me saying Connor Bedard.
Well, I mean, likelier than not, Connor Bedard will not be a Duck.
But
just statistically.
Okay, but regardless, him, Adam Fantilli, Leo Carlsson, any of those guys are going to have to get paid while that cap hit's still there. Like that, it becomes cost prohibitive. And so to me, taking on that amount of payment over that time is not worth it.
It's not as big of a contract as you're making it out to be from what the Ducks would have to pay.
It's over $2 million.
It's not that big of a deal.
It just
depends what you get.
It's over $2 million of dead space. I'd say if it was more than that for 2 years, sure.
Like, here's the thing. You've said on previous podcasts that you'd be willing to retain on a John Gibson trade. Right? And that's the same term, and that'd be roughly the same number. Actually, it'd be more.
It would 100% be more.
So what's the difference?
I think it's a little bit different because the Ducks are paying him $6 million. That cap hit's there already, and whether it's him or it's half of it, so you're actually you're not adding to your cap sheet by doing that.
I think your better argument is just that Gibson gets you more.
Well, no, but it's not only that. It's that cap hit's already there. It's already accounted for. And if you trade him and retain half, it's actually reducing your cap hit and giving you more flexibility. It's not reducing your flexibility.
Okay.
So that's why.
Just fact checking you.
Yeah, there's a reason there.
Okay.
All right. And so getting to I had a couple DMs also for questions. William Lewis said, "Hi Jake, hope the little one is coming along well." He is. Luke is doing great. Saying, "I have a question for the pod, if I may. What is the record in the worst goal differential in the Stanley Cup era, and will the Ducks set a new record this season?"
The Stanley Cup era?
Let's do this current salary cap.
Okay.
Shit stat, but 30 goals clear of the next worst is well, it's something.
Okay, I feel like if you give me enough time, I can find this.
Okay, let's see. Where are the Ducks currently at?
League averages. No, that wouldn't be it.
Oh, I'll be able to find it much quicker than I think you're thinking about.
Okay.
Continue. So the Ducks are currently at negative. Of course, Hockey Reference does not list this as a stat.
Wow,
Great.
You're going real fast there.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna. Hockey Reference is a great tool, but man, I wish they had just goal differential.
Don't you? Yeah, they don't. I know what you're looking at, and they don't.
Yeah. Let's see though.
Goals against.
Let's see. NHL standings. Let's see if maybe the yeah, okay, here we go. So the Ducks currently are at negative 96 this season. Last season, the worst place team was Arizona at negative 106.
Okay.
So they could definitely catch that. COVID season doesn't count because I'm not going to do it on a per game basis. Detroit in 1920, which was a shortened season also, which makes this even wilder. 71 games. Negative 122.
Oh, God.
Holy crap, that there was no other team above 52. And the Red Wings were at negative 122. 18-19, nothing even. The Ducks are worse than any team in 18-19 currently. 17-18, negative 81 was the goal differential. 16-17, Colorado, negative 112. Negative 112 might be the worst.
I have it in front of me. So it's the Capitals in 74-75. Do you want to guess the number?
What is it?
Just take a guess.
Negative 150.
Higher.
Negative 200?
Higher.
Negative 300?
Negative 265 in 80 games. This is the 1974-75
The Ducks
Capitals.
have almost broken the 100 mark in 57 games.
Yeah, the Ducks, though, I mean, to their credit, are not even in the top, 30 of this list. So there's been some really shitty teams in NHL history.
I mean, in the Cap era, they're up there, though.
In the Cap era, the worst team would be the Sabres in 14-15. Or sorry, no, it's the Red Wings. The Red Wings team you mentioned in 1920. Minus 123. What's so impressive about that, like you mentioned, is the 71 games.
Yeah.
And then
the Ducks are on pace to surpass that.
The next worst is the Sabres in 14-15, minus 116. And that did not get them Connor McDavid.
God.
That is a gut punch.
The fact that the overtime wins are booing the Ducks, they have such a worse goal differential than the Blackhawks or the Blue Jackets.
So someone brings this up in our chat, and the Capitals team, their record was 8 wins, 67 losses, and 5 ties. They had 21 points in 80 games. I don't know why that's so funny, but it is. Anyway, there's been some really awful teams. A lot of the teams that are at the top of this list don't exist anymore. Kansas City Scouts.
And then Troy Terry's confidence said, question for the pod. Should we start being concerned about the forward depth in the prospect pool? And when do we start seeing Pavel full time?
Well, you seem to think Pavel is next season.
Regenda?
Oh, I thought you meant Pavel Menchukov.
No, he's talking about it's Pavel with an O is what he said.
Oh, well, see, I don't have the written in front of me.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
You're
Regenda was who he meant.
probably next season.
Yeah,
I would say.
I'm not concerned about forward depth because, you have Zegras on the team. You have McTavish. I think that's lost in a lot of this.
You have the stuff that's the hardest to get, which is the top end talent, and then really it's just a matter of building around that. So, there is some concern. I think it's fair to have a little concern because no one in San Diego is really seemingly turning a corner. Like Jacob Perreault feels like he's stalling and starting. Yeah, Braden Tracy, it's just. So, yeah, there isn't this kind of big next wave. But, again, like we were just saying, if you have the stars in tow, look at what the Penguins have done for over a decade, right? It's you have the stars and then you just keep building around them and you have this revolving door. Now, of course, the Ducks don't have Crosby and Malkin, but it's the same kind of mentality.
Yep. let's see. Ducksco mentions in the Twitch chat, the Ducks aren't that far off from that Capitals team. They only have 7 regulation wins.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more games to be played.
That was also a season where ties existed, but yes.
Oh, man.
God, the majority of the Ducks wins have come in overtime in a shootout.
I really just want to see Dallas Eakins coach where overtime, like an overtime point is not available. Like, how would he coach?
God,
what would
if there was a 3-2-1 system, the Ducks would be clearly the last.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think it would be close. All right. Moving on to Twitch and YouTube. So for those of you listening to the podcast on your favorite podcast services, you can find us at twitch.tv/crashspawned or youtube.com/crashspawned. You can check out our Twitters for the time that we're going to go live. We will tweet it out on Mondays, whether it's going to be 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free Twitch Prime gaming sub each and every month, and it does help out more than you can imagine. I mean, just like Shoegaze, Dragon, Georgie, who resubbed for 1 month. They've been subbed for 47 months. Fat Geralt, who resubbed for 22 months. This is his 22nd month. Our good friend Winterborn gave out 2 different gifted subs, so thank you so much, Winterborn. Thanks. And Firebite subbed with Prime, I think, for the first time, so thank you so much. And Kempafu also subbed, and this is his 36th month of doing that. So thank you so much to all of you for that support. And if you're at YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. It does help out more than you can imagine. We're really trying to push our YouTube channel there, and it helps out a bunch. So if you can do that, that would be great. All right, so let's see. I'm kind of trying to really scroll back. Ducksco had mentioned, did you guys already go over Toronto? I don't think Toronto is getting moved. I don't think it's really someone to really talk about too much. So yeah, so that's kind of where that's at.
He might, but I feel like it's just much smaller of a chance because of the term.
Winterborn asks, what about bad contracts? Can the Ducks take on any?
Man, I don't know what the bad contracts are out there. I don't have that in my Rolodex here.
Yeah, I don't really know too much. I mean, yes. The short answer to that is yes.
They could. Like, they are players to do that. It's just, I don't know what the contract would be, but yes, they could.
And the Ducks, like you kind of said, they could be a third-party team to retain salary. The only issue with that, like we kind of said, no. You only get 3 spots.
Oh, so, okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if the Ducks are going to retain on Klingberg, on Henrique, on Kulikov, they cannot do that. They cannot be a third party for that.
Yeah, but, Henrique's probably not getting traded. So.
Okay. Well, there you go. And if they do that with Carlson, that really makes it harder, even from that.
I really hope that happens just to see your reaction to the Carlson thing.
I don't know. Duxco said, what if teams will want to pay us for a retention slot at the deadline? Will that affect our own deadline with our own players? I mean, that's kind of what we just talked about. I think it depends. It depends on what the Ducks have in mind. If they're only going to use up 1 or 2 of those, I think retaining salary as a third party works out well. I think doing that makes sense for this year, but you are only allowed 3. Fat Geralt said, question, are there any good RFAs coming up worth a qualifying offer?
So I have the list here.
So, and I think you meant more so an offer sheet, not a qualifying offer.
Yeah.
I think that's what Fat Geralt meant.
Well, yeah. Qualifying offer is baked in.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I don't think the Ducks can get any of these players, but for example, Timo Meier's an RFA. Do you think that wherever Timo Meier goes, he will have an extension in hand?
I don't know. There's been actually a decent amount of talk about some teams, maybe like a Carolina.
I feel like if it's the Devils, yes.
I think the Devils would have a built-in extension.
So anyway,
I think Elliot Freeman's mentioned he could see the Hurricanes trading for him, using him at the deadline, then trading him in summer to try to recoup assets.
Yeah. I mean, no way he would extend with that franchise. So, yeah. So Timo Meier maybe, but I don't fully see that. I mean, Alex DeBrincat, it's unclear what's happening there with Ottawa. They don't have any update on where that's going. I don't even know if they've talked about an extension. It's not really super pressing because he's an RFA, but
the issue with an offer sheet is the same thing every year.
Yeah.
It's just, first off, they don't happen much in the amount that it takes. For instance, what's Timo Meyer's qualifying offer? 10 something?
Yeah.
So if you're going to go over his qualifying offer, which is what it would take, right? Why would a team not just, they're going to give him a qualifying offer? It's going to be, if it's over 10.5, you have to give up 4 first-round picks.
Yeah, I mean, that's why to me you have to make a big swing if you're going to do these. Like there's no point if you're go for the biggest fish. And that's why, like, for example, Alex DeBrincat, he's 25. He's a guy who can fit the Ducks kind of current window. I still wouldn't do it because the cost is just so crazy high, and we don't really know how the Ducks are going to be in the next couple of years. Although their first round picks are going to become less and less valuable over the next few years. You would imagine. And then there's Jesper Bratt, who, I mean,
Jesper Bratt's the interesting one.
That might be a viable one because he's at a lower number, and he's the youngest of this group. He's 24. There's been some talk of him and the Devils not being on the same page. His qualifying offer is 5.45. So there you go. Jesper Bratt. That is the player.
Yeah.
He will be a Duck come nightfall.
Okay, there it is. All right, now we're going to YouTube. Sean Fight said, this weekend, WWE is in Montreal, home of the Montreal Screwjob. What is the biggest Screwjob finish in Ducks history?
I don't even know what that means, but based on our conversation we just had, I feel like I have a better idea what it means.
No, the Montreal Screwjob is like a very historic thing where Bret Hart did not tap out.
So why are you ragging on them not having the dude win if this is what they're known for?
Well, that's also a very different situation where it had to do with Bret Hart was leaving the WWE and they screwed him over Vince McMahon screwed him over in Canada where Bret Hart is from. He did not tap out and he spits on it. It's a whole big thing.
What's the Ducks version of this?
The biggest screw job finish in Ducks history.
I'm still not exactly sure what we're talking about, but what is...
I'm going to go with... It's tough because I think when you think of a screw job finish, you think of like a referee, right? That's what your brain goes to right away. And I can't think of a good one in Ducks history from a referee like screwing up a game, right? So I'm just going to go with from the NHL's perspective and the fact that the 15-16 playoffs had Philip Forsberg hit Josh Manson with the headshot and all of the injuries and everything like that. And the best Ducks team of that era did not make it out of the first round.
How about this? Oh, well, I guess one screw job. Did Gabe Landeskog ever get suspended for basically ending?
He did get
Simon
suspended.
Dupre's career.
I think he did get suspended for that.
But that was kind of a screw job because Dupre was a big ad for them. He was a great player at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if off ice counts.
Let's go. NHL fans versus Trevor Zegras.
Well, what about 2005 and getting the second overall pick?
Yeah, that also. Picture if they had Sidney Crosby.
Man, Sidney Crosby because we would have gotten one season of Crosby in the Mighty Ducks uniform because 05-06 was his rookie year and the Ducks were still wearing.
Just like we got 1 year of Getzlaf and Perry.
He's a Penguin though.
God, picture if we got Getzlaf, Perry, and Crosby all on the same team.
I mean, that would have changed the course of NHL history.
How many cups would that Ducks team have won?
More than what they did. They would have been like Chicago on steroids. Like they would have gotten at least 3.
Yeah. Let's see. Brandon Pineda said using Comtois on the fourth line when he needs playmakers or sending Henrique down through waivers.
That was a screw job.
That is actually wild to think about. That Adam Henrique was on waivers.
Yeah, well, Robert Murray.
It's just like crazy that it's like they could retain him and get a first round pick, and that is a player they put on waivers because
they put on waivers.
He did not get claimed.
Yeah, salary.
Granted, there was more term on the deal then.
Yeah. I think now he's at his most appealing value-wise.
Yeah. And then Curtis said, I forget who was. We should also mention this on Shattenkirk. It was reported by the fourth period, right, that the Ducks were maybe talking about extending him. There were also talks, and it very well could be the case, not disputing what the fourth period is reporting. But the same thing kind of happened with Josh Manson, with Hampus Lindholm. It's very likely they're talking to them. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen.
I feel like the Ducks just don't want one of their well-liked players' name out there in that way. They want to keep a tight lid on it, so I just wouldn't read into it very much.
Yep. Although Firebites brings up the Ducks could have won 5 cups with those guys. We couldn't afford all those players. If that happened, I don't think the Ducks trade for Chris Pronger.
I mean, how many other players do you realistically need when you have Perry, Getzlaf, and Crosby in their primes?
Do the Ducks win the 05-06 Cup? Like, they made it to the conference final that year.
Yeah, with an ELC Crosby who had like 100-something points that year.
ELC Crosby, ELC Getzlaf, ELC Perry, Scott Niedermayer, Francois Beauchemin.
When you put it that way, it seems so ridiculous that at one point Sidney Crosby had to make a league minimum.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we just spelled out the problem with that system. Anyway.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
All right. Curtis said, I forget who was reporting it, but one of the insiders mentioned Zaitsev might be an option to Anaheim. Obviously, we need Ottawa to retain him and or provide Sweetener's thoughts. So I actually looked this up because this was put out there by one of those random aggregators, I think.
Puck
and
Empire?
It was something like that.
Hat tip?
It was credited to the fourth period also and Dave Pagnotta. And so I looked it up, and it was just Pagnotta, like, essentially trying to find a fit for Zaitsev.
Oh.
And so it wasn't actually, like, having information. And it was run with as, the Ducks are interested in Zaitsev. And no. So...
You know what's funny?
Maybe they do, and maybe they get a pick for it, but I don't know.
You know what's funny? We're talking about Crosby, Perry, and Getzlaf. I mean, McTavish, Zegras,
Bedard?
and Bedard... Like,
yeah,
how far off from that is that?
I think it's higher, isn't it?
I mean, I don't think
it's different because it's 3 centers, right?
Also, I don't think Bedard is a Crosby level. I mean, I think he's like just a smidge below Crosby.
I mean, he's being compared to McDavid with what he's doing, and McDavid is Crosby level.
Yeah, but I
like
think
you look at the production.
Though,
the production that Bedard's had, and it's on pace with McDavid.
But people agree that Bedard is lower than McDavid.
I don't think
Crosby. So. Crosby's draft year had 168 points in 62 games. Like, what's Bedard at? Like, Crosby was pushing 200 points. There's just no way that Bedard's close to this.
Connor Bedard in how many games?
In 62.
Connor Bedard is at 105 and 42. And the thing to keep in mind is the leagues have changed over that time, and there's way more competitive players over that time period. Goalies are better, everything along those lines. But he has 105 and 42.
Yeah, I mean, he's all this to say that, like, assuming that anyone is going to be Sidney Crosby is just really hard because of how good Crosby was. But again, even if Bedard is just short of that, like, you're still getting a generational talent.
So Connor McDavid there we go. You can actually compare players on the two. Yeah. Does it give seasons? So the age 18 season, age 17 season, Bedard has 105 and 42. McDavid had 120 and 47.
Yeah. I think Bedard is just, and I mean, it's just an eye test thing too. Like, I think Bedard is clearly just a smidge lower than McDavid. And I mean, then McDavid Crosby is a separate conversation. So
yeah, we'll see.
But anyway, he's in that
yeah.
galaxy, and so you have him plus Zegras, plus McTavish, plus Terry, and oh boy, things could get interesting.
Ducks would be good next year.
You know, I'm scarred. Every game this year, I have people reminding me that I was high on this team.
Hope springs eternal is the saying, Felix. How are we at an hour and a half? All right, let's end this. Let's end this. Whom do you fantasy book Gibson to fight out of the 31 other teams?
Yeah, how could we have gone an hour and a half without talking about John Gibson trying to fight Phoenix Copley?
He's gonna fight Phoenix Copley in the next game. Like, that's the final game of the season. How much do you want to bet Gibson just says fuck it?
Oh, well, he already did say fuck it, and it didn't work out for him. Yeah, no, I want to see that happen.
Yeah. Everyone knows where I'm at with fighting, and I still, just for entertainment's sake, would probably want to see that.
Yeah.
So, and last game of the season, end it with that. Go out on a bang.
Yeah, I mean, we still have to watch these games somehow.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of hockey
They play
left.
Tampa tomorrow.
Yeah, big game.
Yeah.
Big game.
Go
I'm
ahead.
really upset that the Ducks couldn't beat Florida today.
God.
Yeah.
Such a Habs homer. All right, I'm going to end this real quick with a food take that you're going to agree with. That is going to make Lou crazy.
I just had a quick thought, actually.
Okay.
Is Arturi Lehkonen from last year a comp for Henrique?
No.
Because he was an RFA, I think.
No. Different ages.
Different ages, but
No, I don't think so.
he's the only like non-rental.
Yeah. No,
Anyway.
I don't think so. Here's the take. Dark chocolate's greater than milk chocolate.
See, I can't get there because I like both.
No,
This
I
is
like
one of-
I like both also. Dark chocolate's better. It's where I'm at in my life. I've come to this conclusion.
Here's the thing with dark chocolate, though. There's gradations of dark chocolate. Like there's 90% cacao, which is completely different than, the 70%, than the 60%. So just saying dark chocolate to me isn't even enough because there's a wide range of possibilities there as well.
I'm going dark chocolate's better.
Yeah, I'll push back. I think they're both great. And I think sometimes
they're-
ties are allowed. Ties are allowed.
They're both great.
You're a soccer fan. Ties are okay.
They are. But dark chocolate I'm at the point in my life where I prefer it. I don't need that extra little bit of sweetness. You eat dark chocolate enough and you appreciate that sweetness.
I like them both. They both have a seat at my table.
I mean, they both have a seat at my table also. Doesn't mean that
It
I can't
sounds like
prefer one.
you're pushing milk chocolate off the table. And
I don't eat it that much.
Yeah, I mean, I will eat. The thing with dark chocolate, especially if you get the 92%, which is what I usually get,
It's so good.
well, I can just eat it a little more guilt-free because it just has less sugar and it has some health benefits, whereas milk chocolate is basically, I mean, it is candy. So,
Yeah. Less sugar. It's just better. It's better for you. It's good for your skin.
okay.
There we go.
Okay.
That was mainly one just to make Lou mad.
Well, he doesn't like rice.
He also doesn't like anything other than Hershey's chocolate in terms of candy.
Hershey's chocolate has a place in my heart.
But how can you not say that Snickers are good or like candy bars are good? Like,
They're designed for you to enjoy them.
Yeah.
There's like this whole thing about how they come up with the perfect like intersection of sweet, savory, salty so that people get absolutely hooked to them. Like this is a thing. So if you don't like them, good for you because you're probably going to eat less, unhealthy things, but also like something might just be wrong with your brain.
I mean, it is Lou.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with Lou's brain, for the record.
There might be something wrong with his taste buds.
That's fair. PB and caramel. He's in our chat right now.
I understand that.
Peanut butter and caramel are disgusting. I've come way down from peanut butter over the years.
Wow.
It's so bad.
What?
It's so bad. And then caramel. Oh,
What?
by the way, it's caramel. I need to correct myself. It's caramel.
I flip back and forth between the two
It's
pronunciations.
not caramel. There's
Both-
literally there's two A's. It's pronounce them, please.
Wow. Wow.
Peanut
Tomato.
Peanut butter. Here's the thing with peanut butter, and we'll wrap up. It has to be actual peanut butter, like Skippy. Whatever the other ones are called. Skippy. Jif. Is that what it's called? Obviously, Gif.
It's
Jif.
It's Jiffy.
Oh, whatever.
Wait,
Whatever
no,
the heck
it's
they're called.
Skippy and Jif. Jif, sorry.
Yeah, it's
J
Jif.
and it's JIF.
They're not even like if you look at the ingredients, it's barely peanut butter. It's just a bunch of stuff.
They
And
have
you don't
an
even know-
all natural one that I've had that's good.
That's what I'm saying. Like if it's actual, just like if as long as the ingredient is just peanuts, I'm on board.
Yeah.
But you got to pay premium for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Here we
good.
are.
I have a Trader Joe's ones that's just peanut butter and salt. That's it.
Yeah.
Ooh, creamy or crunchy from the natural perspective?
Well, from the natural perspective, I feel like it's always the same. It's like kind of this weird cross between the two.
No, it's not.
But back in the day when I ate,
The natural one you can get creamy or crunchy. They're very
well,
different.
crunchy is the answer.
Oh no, it's creamy.
If you don't eat your peanut butter crunchy,
Oh god,
that does say something about you.
what does it say about me?
And I will let the audience decide. The Montreal Screwjob, in effect here.
You need to Google the Montreal Screwjob.
I don't know what it means, and I'm just using it, flippantly.
Are you gonna spit on me like Brett spit on Vince McMahon?
No,
Okay.
I wouldn't do that. That's gross.
Are you gonna punch me out like Brett punched out Vince McMahon in the back?
No.
Okay.
Cashew butter is better than... I've never had cashew butter. I've had almond butter.
I've had a dark chocolate bar that had cashew butter in it, and it was really good.
Cashews are pretty... I barely eat nuts. Maybe I should get back to my nutty ways.
Peanut butter's good.
I used to be a big cashew guy.
Yeah, Skippy Natural's good.
Cashews, almonds are solid.
Walnuts are good.
Walnuts might be the best nut. Or are they a legume?
I think walnuts are nuts. I mean, nut is in the name.
I think walnut is a legume.
It's in the name.
Is a walnut a nut? A nut. In botany terms, nuts are strictly this doesn't help me. Wow, so although culinarily considered a nut and used as such, it is not a true botanical nut. Got him. So what is it, though?
It's a nut.
I'm not going to
scroll
scroll down.
Nut is in the name. Nut is in the name. It's a walnut.
I think it's a legume. And I don't even actually know what a legume is. I've just heard someone say that.
It's like a bean.
It's not a nut.
Legume is like a bean.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Pistachios. Also very solid.
Sunflower butter is very good.
So walnuts are seeds. It makes sense because they're in a shell. Originally, you have to crack open the shell.
I mean, so are peanuts.
I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with reasons.
So are pistachios.
No, I think pistachios are seeds.
Pistachios come... Oh, okay.
Are pistachios seeds?
I mean,
so pistachio isn't really a nut at all. Technically, it's a drupe. A fleshy tree fruit that contains a shell-covered seed.
Fleshy tree fruit. Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Something I did not expect to hear on this podcast.
A drupe.
A drupe.
Yeah. I'm shocked that there's still 33 people watching this right now.
All right, I am too.
And that number just hasn't completely tanked.
It actually went up recently.
Well, I think we should go out on top. I think
talking about drupes, fleshy tree fruit.
I think we've there's so many nut jokes to be made, but I'll refrain.
I've been resisting.
Yeah, it's a good thing to resist. Just know that we know that those jokes were there to be made.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, let's get out of here. Thanks everybody for listening. If you want to help us keep this thing going and you want to support the show, there's a few really easy ways to do that. The number one way is to check out our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/crashthepond and subscribe. For $1 a month, you get access to our patrons only Discord server. And this time of year, it's the best investment you can make as a Ducks/hockey fan because you get access to a tight-knit community of diehard fans, and you don't need Twitter anymore when you have our Discord. The news go in there fast. People are discussing them immediately. It's truly the best, and around trade deadline time...
You will get turtled if you're late on your link.
Well, there might be a grace period for newer people. I don't know. That hasn't been discussed, but I'm speaking it right now. Anywho, that's for $1 a month. It's truly a great investment. And you're allowed to stick around after the trade deadline too. And then for $5 a month, you get access to 2 bonus Patreon episodes. So next month we'll do a full trade deadline breakdown where we talk about every single trade. So it's definitely worth it. As you can tell, we talk about other teams on those episodes, and we also talk about Ducks topics too. So we have everything covered. That's all at patreon.com/crashthepond. If you don't want to do that though, or if you want to help us out even more, go to Apple Podcasts, search Crash the Pond, leave a 5-star rating, leave a review. That goes a long way. Go to Spotify, leave us a 5-star rating there. Go to YouTube, search Crash the Pond, subscribe, turn on notifications. That always helps. And find us on Twitter. Jake is on Twitter at ReindeerGames91. I'm on Twitter. Just search Felix Sicard at Felix_Sicard. And also check out the Sporting Tribune. Follow our good buddy Derek Lee at, was it D-Rock Lee 27?
I think it's technically an I instead of an L. So he did that to try to get the handle. So D-Rock Lee, but an I instead of L.
Just search Derek Lee, D-E-R-E-K. Great follow for your Ducks coverage needs. He actually tweets lines from Morning Skate for home games. So that's a big ad.
It's a big luxury.
That's a big luxury. And just check out the Sporting Tribune as well. Follow them. Search Sporting Tribune on Twitter. That will do it for the show. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And hopefully in a week's time, we'll have at least one trade to talk about.
Yep.
We'll see. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.